Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the BitcoinMeister, the DisruptMeister. Welcome to This Week in Bitcoin. Today is June the 2nd, 2017. This is home of long-term cryptocurrency thinking. Golden hold, be in motion. If you are impulsive, well, this price probably isn't for you. But hey, you're part of a financially mature audience now, and I'm proud to have the best guest in the space here. I wanted to thank the people who've sent me in Bitcoin and Litecoin recently. And so our special 3 guests today, 2 of them I know you know, Ansel Lindner, you know Crypto de Medici from his great Twitter. I'm going to link to their important links below shortly. They might not be down there yet. Sorry, we're in a rush here. And introducing to the audience, you might be familiar with him because he had an awesome post about the ICO bubble. His name is Josh Nussbaum. He's coming straight out of New York City. He's going to introduce himself first, and then we're going to go to Ansel to talk about what everybody wants to hear about, and that is the user-activated soft fork in August 1st and all that stuff. So Josh, tell us who you are real quick.
Sure. I'm Josh. I'm a VC in New York City at a firm called Compound. We're seed stage investors in technology startups. We've made over 60 investments to date. We're generalists, so we invest in just about all categories. And sort of our sweet spot is companies that leverage new technologies to disrupt or enable traditional industries.
All right, awesome. So we're really excited to hear more about ICOs from your perspective in the belly of the beast, New York City. I don't even know, were you at any of the events recently?
Yeah, the Consensus and Token Summit.
All right, so you're going to talk about that too.
Yeah,
look at this. All right, so before we get into all of that, and we're going to talk about Ethereum and ICOs and everything today, Ansel is going to just talk about what is happening on August the 1st with this BIP 148, with the user-activated soft fork, give us and his opinion of the risk and the rewards, and if he has the fear. My big fear that we're going to go over with all the guests is I just don't want to end up with 2 Bitcoin. So take it away, Ansel.
Well, I could start by doing the technical stuff. So say user activated soft fork is just forcing a activation of SegWit, and that is BIP 141. So there's all these acronyms and stuff. It's kind of hard for people to follow, but basically, on August 1st, a bunch of nodes out there, users on the network, are going to stop relaying any block that doesn't have a signal for BIP 141. What the danger there? Well, the good thing is we'll get SegWit. At least on one chain, we'll get SegWit. The bad thing is there could be a coin split. If there's less than 51% of the hash power at that time, after August 1st, then that is not signaling for SegWit. There will be a coin split. The biggest risk that I see is that they will hard fork the legacy chain that doesn't split off, will hard fork to protect itself, because say that the user activated soft fork gets 25% of the hashing power, actually needs 33% to be safe from a 51% attack back the other way. But if lost my train of thought. If 33% of the miners go with user activated soft fork and 66% stay with the long chain is going to have to hard fork to stay safe from a reorg, where the blockchain from the smaller side will eventually catch up and take back over the original chain. That can't happen the other way. It can only happen from the user-activated soft fork chain to the legacy chain. So to protect against that, Jihan will probably hard fork and to protect himself from that reorg. So in my eyes, the choice is between a user-activated soft fork and a hard fork. The legacy chain is dead. It will not continue. The legacy chain is going to be reorged probably back into the user activated soft fork once Jihan does a hard fork. So exchanges and miners and users, everybody needs to ask themselves, do you want a hard fork with Jihan, or do you want to do a user activated soft fork and have a backwards compatible SegWit?
All right, but when you're saying that people are going to have to ask themselves that, what has to happen on that day to avoid Jihan continuing some sort of coin that he and some loudmouths are saying is Bitcoin? Because that's what it's from being contentious. When won't it be contentious anymore? And what will stop Jihan from doing that?
Jihan won't mine a coin that's way less valuable. So if the user activated soft fork coin is more valuable, then Jihan will go there. And there's all sorts of things here with the SegWit 2 megabyte hard fork. But bottom line is, if the exchanges start offering the user activated soft fork chain, then I think this will all get worked out, because Jihan will not mine a less valuable coin.
So there's going to be pressure on these exchanges from all of us to just do it. Just, this is the real Bitcoin. This is what you're selling. And thus, Jihan will have to forget about his dreams of controlling Bitcoin and do the financially prudent thing and just go with what is being sold.
Yes, and there's going to be lots of FUD out there all over the place. Yeah, I've seen some people say they found some exploits for the user activated soft fork. There's all sorts of that going on, but really it's rock solid. SegWit is rock solid. User activated soft fork is rock solid. The only risks are to if it only gets, say, 5% of the support, it's gonna be off on its own, and it's gonna have to deal with the dangers. But you will be safe if you don't take sides.
All right. So is there a chance that instead of before that date, could these miners just get the point that, play it through their heads and say, the user activated soft fork, they have the leverage over us. Just let's not be content. Let's just do SegWit. Do you think they can get that logical because there's going to be some big confusion, big price drops if your first scenario plays out?
Well, they already have agreed to SegWit, right? All these miners have agreed to SegWit with the 2 megabyte hard fork. So there's nothing to stop them from agreeing to the user activated soft fork. There's all sorts of technical things that limit that 2 megabyte hard fork from happening in a timely manner. So for example, they signal, like 141, the original SegWit signals with bit 1. And if this new SegWit hard fork, I call it, because it's not really SegWit, it's totally new thing. They signal with the bit 4. Those cannot be on the network at the same time. There's going to be all sorts of conflicts there. So they have a choice whether to go with SegWit that they've all agreed to. And in the New York agreement, they said that we will do this immediately. We will immediately follow the original proposal by SD Learner from a couple months ago. And that means that they need to activate the original SegWit. If that happens, there won't be a hard fork, because most people will just stiff arm the hard fork just like they've always done. And again, we are returned to the political battle between I don't trust that you're going to do a hard fork, so I'm not going to allow that, and yada, 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 all this stuff. But the user activated soft fork is kind of the backup here. It is going to force this on the network.
All right. So as there are a lot of people watching this right now. Pound that like button, people. All these people out there, what they should do is just put out marketing, tell their exchanges, support user activated soft fork. Basically, we got to get the exchanges to be on board with this thing 100%. Basically, is part of the solution. Okay,
yes,
so
exchanges need to be on board. So
that is something that every man, every woman out there can do, is just wear the user activated soft fork hat and just tell their exchange, only sell this, only deal with that, so that this is the only thing that's profitable for the miners.
Yes.
Okay. So if it looks like that's happening before August 1st, everyone can be calm. Okay. I want to go to Crypto de Medici now. As a guy who is involved with investors and such, what are people saying about this August 1st date? Some of this stuff is obviously confusing to non-technical people. They don't want there to be 2 Bitcoin. They don't want some guy in China hijacking everything. These aren't financially sound things. What is your opinion of this situation, the August 1st deadline, user-activated soft fork, and what do you think the investors are thinking? Are there people freaking out or anything like that?
Well, I mean, personally, I don't like the drama that's happening, in the sense that, before it was just words and now it's actually actions, and these, especially if the miners don't go along with what's happening, we could actually have, 2 Bitcoin. That's definitely not good with investors. But what's interesting is that most investors that I associate with, they don't really know what's actually going on. They're very uninformed about the situation. And most of them are not technical at all, which is even worse. So I think overall the market itself isn't really too involved with the drama that's going on in Bitcoin. So I think the price will be affected if it ends up happening. But again, I think most investors just have no clue what's going on. And then you have something like Ethereum, which continues to rise up. And I think that's partly because I think the people that really know what's happening they're afraid of what's going to happen with Bitcoin. And I think they're moving towards something like Ethereum in the short term, just to kind of ride out the storm and hope that nothing wrong happens to Bitcoin.
Very interesting, and we're going to get to the Ethereum situation. I want everyone to keep that in mind. Are certain people using Ethereum as a hedge again, that are in the know, using it as a hedge against uncertainty of August 1st? I want to move on to Josh here. In your neck of the woods, in venture capital, do the VC people know about this? Do they care about this at all? About this August 1st date? Are they still big on Bitcoin? Or is everyone getting on this ICO train? And please tell us your opinion of segregated witness and what you think should happen. And do you want to avoid 2 Bitcoin at all costs?
Yeah, I think in the VC community, by and large, there isn't a lot of knowledge about segregated witness and all that kind of stuff. I think also that most people at this point are more interested in ICOs. I think that the thing that VCs get a lot of crap for is moving on to the next thing and sort of taking these low probability, high potential impact investments and bets. And so everybody's thinking about tokens and ICOs and talking about them. And I've seen a lot more awareness there. Whereas, maybe 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, a lot of that energy and knowledge is being put towards Bitcoin and the blockchain, and a lot of different types of companies that were more B2B, selling to financial institutions, especially here in New York, private companies, exchanges, things like that. And so I don't think it's something that most VCs talk about or understand or think about. They might care if they did take that time, but they're not making investments in Bitcoin by and large. And so it's not something that they are overly concerned with for that reason. I do think there's other types of VCs though that are just focused on this space, or some of the crypto hedge funds and things like that, where a big percentage of their holdings are in Bitcoin. So for them, it is very much top of mind and really important.
Well, so this is very interesting in it. So in certain areas, among certain very wealthy people, the ICO is serving almost as a buffer, hiding Bitcoin. Bitcoin's civil war here is being completely eclipsed by the ICO madness.
Yeah, I think it's actually benefited the ICOs to a great extent. And what you had said about people moving towards Ether as a hedge, I think is very true with the ICOs as well.
All right, so let's talk about ICOs for a moment here. And this is something that you are very cautious about. And I've had quite a few guests who are cautious about it. At the same time, I'm sure you have some interest. Talk about your opinion of ICOs, and I guess give us some, it wasn't this week, I guess it was last week now, but about your experiences going to the events in New York City. So your opinion on ICOs and what happened at these events in your opinion.
Yeah, when it comes to ICOs, there's a lot to be really excited about there. I think there's a lot of potential products that could have been built in Web 1.0 and 2.0 days that couldn't because of the chicken and egg problem. And so you had these big companies, Facebook, Google, Twitter to a lesser extent, that built these huge networks and were able to dominate via network effects. And that's kind of similar to pre-internet days, the way that, let's say, CPG companies dominated because they were able to monopolize supply chain and economies of scale and TV advertising. And then you look at sort of the token mechanism, and all of a sudden you can incentivize all parties in a way that gets you over that chicken and egg hump. And so I think there's a lot of interest from VCs because they looked at sort of where most of the money was made in venture. And that came in sort of the network effect days. So these bigger platforms that had, tens of billions to hundreds of billions of dollars in returns or in market cap. And I think we've gone through a period where innovation hasn't slowed, but this potential size outcomes like that haven't been nearly as big. And you start to see more verticalized plays, marketplaces, SaaS companies, et cetera. And so a lot of the excitement around the ICOs comes from the fact that all of a sudden you could sort of rewire a lot of things in the internet to take on Facebook or Google or do things that before probably wouldn't have been profitable or possible to do without a lot of cash. And so I think when I think about ICOs, think about sort of what couldn't you do before you had this token mechanism, and not necessarily taking what exists on the internet today and saying, let's make this decentralized, which makes sense in some cases. But what wasn't possible? What are the things that just didn't make sense from a profitability standpoint that you couldn't fund previous to ICOs and tokens?
All right. If all of this building that's going on with the ICOs, all this interest, money flowing into it, do you see this? And you obviously see what's going on with Ethereum. It's helping Ethereum. Yeah. What are there some threats to Ethereum because of this? Is it putting too much of one's eggs in one basket here? If one of these blows up, is it going to have some major blowback on Ethereum? And what do you anticipate one of these blowing up and causing just major problems for the whole ICO industry, bubble, et cetera?
Yeah, I think it's certainly possible. It depends on a lot of sort of second order effects. But if there comes a time where investors are not willing to wait for these projects and for developers to build on them at some growth, and you start to try and put numbers against the price of the token and the market cap, I think that you could have people selling very quickly, which would have others sort of scared of Ether falling, and that's kind of how bubbles tend to pop. On the flip side, if one starts to really take off beyond just price, there starts to be killer apps built on top of it. You could see the opposite effect too.
Do you have any thoughts on the events that you went to? Was it madness like I heard it was? But do you have any advice for the people that are watching out there that are just somewhat impulsive and just want to get blindly into ICOs? Do you have just words of wisdom for the audience, and tell us what happened at the events if there's anything that you thought was noteworthy?
Yeah, I'll start with the events. So they were very different, which I would have expected more sort of overlap in the audience. The Token Summit was much smaller, but there's clearly a lot of excitement from the developer community, people who are sort of on the ground up, students, very similar to sort of what I remember in New York City in the early days of Tumblr and Foursquare and Etsy, where people were really excited about this and they wanted to get involved and were interested. And then consensus is more, I would say, on the corporate side. So you got a lot of big companies and sending, a lot of different people there and speaking and sponsoring and had booths and whatnot, which I think is also positive for the ecosystem. I think that, they tend to be fickle and they'll run away at the sure signs of it not, being a very profitable business for them. But having that in the ecosystem, companies that are willing to maybe invest in some ICOs or use blockchain technology can really move the industry forward. We're investors in a company called Gem that announced a partnership with Toyota, and Toyota's testing some ways to create this sort of shared data layer for autonomous vehicles. So all the stakeholders sort of contributing their data for artificial intelligence on the blockchain. And I think that that's a really interesting use case where, Google and Facebook and a lot of the big platforms have made a lot of their technologies open source now. But the big companies haven't, and sort of be able to sort of talk about that and use their data and allow developers to build on that, could make for a really interesting next couple of years.
All right. All right. Good stuff. I like this perspective. Medici, you've been silent here for a little bit. I want to give you the floor. What's going on in your neck of the woods in terms of your opinion about this IPO stuff, and does it bleed into your thoughts about Ethereum? Because I know you wanted to talk a little bit about Ethereum. Obviously, Ethereum hit a very high price, an all-time high in terms of dollars and Bitcoin this week. It got to be 10% of one Bitcoin, one Ethereum. So take it away, Medici.
I think the ICO, what's happening with ICOs is great. The problem obviously is when something so new just starts, there's no regulation, there's no kind of ethics behind the whole movement. So we're obviously going to see scams and we're going to see projects that just blow up. But overall, if we're looking at it from a long-term perspective, ICOs, the ability to allow any individual from basically anywhere around the world to participate in these types of ICOs is a massive step forward. And so I'm very bullish when it comes to ICOs. The problem is that, yes, there's going to be a lot of projects that are not going to do well and that are just not economically viable. But I think this is going to help the price of Ethereum continue to go up. I mean, I think the bubble is really just beginning to form. I think we have seen nothing yet, which is both exciting but also worrisome. We're not invested as much in Ethereum as we were in the past, just because there's other cryptocurrencies that we think they're going to have a greater, greater reward. But yeah, I see Ethereum continuing to go up, and I see the ICO space just beginning. So
all right.
That's, yeah.
I want you to keep in mind, because people are I'm gonna leave this for a little later. So everyone pound that like button if you want to hear the altcoins that he is interested in, though. But we're gonna get actually back to that in the next round of questioning. So everyone pound that like button. There's like 120 of you out there. Ansel, I know you've got to have opinions on what's going on with Ethereum and these ICOs and what everyone just said. So take it away.
Yeah, I don't follow it as much as these guys do, it seems like, but I do read a few things and follow stuff on, say, Reddit and Twitter. But I noticed, what was this one that just launched the other day or yesterday? And there was all this backlog, and there was like $2,000 fees and all this stuff on Ethereum. And then somebody went in and like looked at the blockchain at that time, and 95% of all traffic on Ethereum is ICO traffic or exchange traffic. There's almost nothing for payments. And there's nothing, I've never seen, there might be like one or two projects that have ever gone live. And one of the biggest ones was a disaster, the DAO. So none of these projects I see have really any long-term economic value. It's all speculative. One thing I want to point out is that a lot of these projects don't ever produce code, because I compare it to the innovator's dilemma, where you don't necessarily want to innovate because you might lose your existing customers, right? So these guys, their product is an ICO, and they don't want to actually produce code, because then people might actually know that it's not a viable idea. So that's one of these reasons why we've seen Augur's, I think, the idea is older than Bitcoin, but the project, I think, is maybe 5 years old, and it still has not released a project. And it was the highest valued token on Ethereum for years for about a year until some of these ICOs kicked off. So, I mean, there is a lot of effort, a lot of development trying to make these things work, and they just haven't produced anything. Another thing too about Ethereum is that they're trying to go to Casper, and one of their main lead developers is Vlad. And he said recently that on a tweet, he said that he's going to leave if the miners don't switch to proof of stake. So now we can see that this whole the miner controversy, this interest group versus that interest group in Ethereum. They're starting to feel the scaling debate come to Ethereum. And to me, kind of the question is, will any of these ICOs produce actual product before Ethereum explodes? That's what I think.
It's a legitimate question. I don't know if certain investors even care. People who are going to pump and dump that are just short term. It's not even on their radar. I doubt it is, at least. And you bring up a very interesting point about the proof of work and proof of stake. And here on the BitcoinMeister channel, this untouchable subject on other channels is very much covered. The very possibility that there will end up with a third Ethereum. That if Ethereum goes, the regular Ethereum goes proof of stake, that there's going to be people that stay proof of work, and it's going to split because the precedent's already there with Ethereum Classic. And this is a reason why Bitcoin must not get into the business of splitting, because once you split once, you can easily split again. So the topic of Ethereum 3, the shunned topic, is one that is very much talked about on this channel, and it's something that we will continue to talk about and prepare for Ethereum number 3, which is clearly down the road.
Can I add one more thing here, Adam?
Yes, please.
I don't know why people need to build on Ethereum, because why don't they just clone Ethereum and have their own freaking blockchain? They wouldn't. I think all of these ICOs are systemic risks for the other ones. So why not? Why doesn't an ICO just launch their own Ethereum clone? Some of them are probably doing that, and that totally undermines Ethereum's value proposition.
You're right. I mean, Rootstock is giving people an option to do it on Bitcoin, obviously. But you make an excellent point there. They can make their own Ethereum, run their own. Yeah, I don't know why. And at the same time, perhaps some of them will hedge their bets and just do it on Ethereum Classic, which would be similar. But then once you build too many on Ethereum Classic, you get into the same situation. If one blows up, everybody panics about that coin. Or maybe they don't. Maybe the irrational exuberance around all this, if one's going to blow up, that'll just be, people will just keep on blindly buying it. Because, it's true. And Tone Vase in the chat has been saying for a while there's going to be a third Ethereum. Yes, Tone Vase's channel is another channel where they tell the truth about there's going to be a third Ethereum. And I think he probably was the first person ever to talk about that. But we talk about it here too also. But okay, with everything that has been said, I have a follow-up question for all of you. With the Ethereum madness that's going on, with the ICO madness that's going on, with the uncertainty about August 1st that's going on, and the SegWit and the Bit 148, before August 1st, is it impossible for Bitcoin to get to $3,000? All these factors, is there just too much uncertainty for Bitcoin to even dream of getting to $3,000 by August the 1st? Ansel, what do you think?
I don't think so. I think it's possible. There's the incentives for the user activated soft fork work prior to the event. I don't think it's going to be dragged on afterwards. I think it's going to, August 1st, we're going to have pretty clear know what's going to happen, and everybody will have made their decisions in the weeks prior. So maybe weeks prior to that, some insiders, people that know the miners, people that know big money, they're going to be starting to buy, and who knows, it could go to 3,000. All
right, so you say it's out there that these factors are not that much of a hindrance, and that in fact maybe, and I hope so too. I hope that to have an agreement before August 1st, or at least there's some have some insiders know that there's an agreement, so we see that a lot of buying is going on. Crypto Medici, what do you think? Is $3,000 possible before August 1st? Or are we going to have to wait out all of these things that I just mentioned?
It's extremely possible. I think we're going to hit it, and I think we're going to blow right through it. There's just a lot of money coming into the market, and we see that with Coinbase sign-ups. We see that with Poloniex, Bittrex. I think it's just a matter of time.
But you don't see. Between that, there's a lot of stuff going on, but it's just with this date floating around out there, I feel it is, I mean, it's good that we're going to have to make a decision here. That's great. But I think with this date out there, I almost feel like it's going to be something that's in the back of people's minds that it's holding them back. If they knew right now that SegWit was going to go through uncontested, that there wasn't going to be 2 Bitcoins, everyone would be like, Bitcoin's the thing again. I'm not as interested in these ICOs. I want something that's more stable. Let me throw some money in this. So, okay, you feel like there's enough people out there now who don't know anything about what's going on, who don't have any technical knowledge, who don't know SegWit from Darth Vader, that would just buy that will help Bitcoin get to 3,000. That is possible.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there that just all they hear about is just that Bitcoin in the future might hit 10,000, 100,000. You see all these clickbait articles that are being promoted by CNBC and all these big media outlets, and I think that's just going to continue to drive people that just have no clue about what's actually happening with Bitcoin to continue to go up. But I do think once we get near that date, and there isn't a clear picture as to how we're moving, and that there actually might be a threat to Bitcoin, then I think the market is going to react in a very negative way.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point you bring up. I tell people to prepare that if it looks real rocky, even though it might not be that rocky, that be prepared for something to drop like $500 in one day or something, that maybe go up 200 the next day. I mean, people should be prepared if it's like July the 25th, July the 28th, to have a real strong hand, and to pound that like button right now if you like it when I say strong hand. All right, so Josh, what are your thoughts? Is the price of Bitcoin being held back? Could we see $3,000 before August the 1st? And where do you see Bitcoin hitting $3,000 once everything's solved, or is Ethereum taking over the world and everyone just going to move into ICOs and forget about Bitcoin?
Yeah, I wouldn't bet on it hitting 3,000 before August 1st if nothing's resolved. To Crypto Dimedici's point, I think we're starting to see more and more national media attention towards Bitcoin and the growth in price. And so it wouldn't take much to bring in many unsophisticated investors who start to purchase a little bit of Bitcoin and really push the price up. I think if we do have a settlement, it definitely will go over 3,000. Because I think at that point you start to see it being more stable, and there will be ups and downs with ICOs and Ether, especially in the short term, but I think probably over the course of the next year. And a lot of people will move that money probably to something more stable like Bitcoin. So I wouldn't say it's likely, but it's certainly possible. And the other thing is, it only takes one larger macro event to have people speculating on Bitcoin for it to go over 3,000. It doesn't usually last, usually comes down a little bit after. But I could easily see that happening, especially with all the uncertainty in the world right now around certain currencies and government.
Do you see Ethereum going above 0.1 Bitcoin? It's been around 0.1 Bitcoin. That's a momentous occasion. Can you see it going higher?
I think so. The thing about ICOs right now is that they're pretty rare. Somebody on my Twitter feed yesterday compared it to the Yeezys of cryptocurrencies. And I think that's the thing, is if you look at sort of early startups post, let's call it AWS, when there were just a lot of companies being started, it's still a little bit more technical and a little bit, there's not as many people who can field these projects and be able to raise money. So if there's one released every week or so, imagine if that was, startups in 2007 after Facebook's IPO, and they were all open up to the public. People do start to put a lot of money in there, and that will have others speculating on Ether as well. But I don't think, I think we're still far away from the bubble popping. I think the average person still isn't sort of aware of ICOs and the way that sort of people are making real money, speculating early on. And so I think it'll come after that sort of that wave of people come into the market and people still don't launch a project or have anything to back up that price.
Real quick, since you're in the VC world, I guess you encounter glimpses of Barry Silbert. I mean, he's everywhere. Do you have any thoughts on?
Our office is on the same block.
Yeah. Do you have thoughts about what Barry Silbert has been very newsworthy lately? Do you have any thoughts about him or Ethereum Classic? I mean, he's very much associated with Ethereum Classic. Do you have opinions on Ethereum Classic at all? But we're talking about Ethereum, we're talking about big money, we're talking about Barry Silver. Any thoughts on any of that?
I don't really. I don't have strong opinions either way. There are people who are a lot more knowledgeable than I am about that subject. I think that Barry's been really great for the community at large, just sort of being able to help a lot of these companies and developers early on, bring recognition to the tech community. To Barry's was sort of a well-known figure in the New York tech community prior to Digital Currency Group. And so I think that's really helped the ecosystem grow over the last couple of years.
All right, Medici, this is a good way to get you to talk about what your coins of interest are that you alluded to before. And I personally, again, I brought this, I think it was yesterday's show. I did 2 shows yesterday. I said Ethereum Classic is insurance for Ethereum. That's a reason. If you're holding Ethereum, well, why not have insurance? Ethereum Classic is insurance for Ethereum, in my opinion. It always has been. And I actually used to talk about that in the old days too, but I just rethought it. Do you have thoughts on Ethereum Classic? But also, Medici, tell us about your other altcoins you wanted to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Well, kind of answering the question that you asked prior with Barry Silver, I think what he's doing is leading the way into what the future is going to hold, in the sense of helping a cryptocurrency like Ethereum Classic through the investment trust and through the percentage of fees that he's receiving from that fund to help to fund the development of Ethereum Classic. I think that's a great idea, and many cryptocurrencies such as Litecoin is gonna kind of move in that direction, because what these cryptocurrencies need, if they don't have governance or they don't have a budget that goes towards developing the cryptocurrency, is they need backers with money to start helping it. And once you're helping the cryptocurrency, hopefully as an investment, you see it continuing to grow, which is what we're seeing with Ethereum Classic and Barry Silver. So instead of investing in these cryptocurrency companies, which could work out, but they produce lower returns, you invest in these cryptocurrencies by providing funds for their development. So I think what he's doing is leading the way into what we're going to be seeing down the line. Now, talking about our investments, we have a pretty big stake in Ethereum Classic, because we see Barry's vision and we see his connections, and we also like where the development is going. So we're pretty bullish when it comes to Ethereum Classic in the long term. Some of our other investments include Litecoin. We like Litecoin just because of first because they passed SegWit, and also because of the drama that's going on with Bitcoin and how widely accepted it is in China. I think that's going to help it. It hasn't been producing the results that we think that it would be producing right now, but I think that's just going to be even better for the long term, especially once we kind of start moving up to the August deadline. We also have Dash. We love Dash because of its governance. And I think that's a lot of cryptocurrencies are going to have to take some form of budget system as well. So we have Dash that's providing right now it's more than $800,000 a month for its development, whether it is coding, developers, marketing, whatever it is. So it's miles ahead from most altcoins. And so it's pretty bullish about that. And we also like the community, and any strong community means that it's going to stick around for a while. So we like that cryptocurrency. And that's really it. I mean, we kind of narrowed.
Well, Medici, I have a question about governance then, because you brought this up twice now, and this is very interesting. It's obviously, is it something, I guess, taking all the current events involved, is this going to be the next flavor of the month in altcoins? And it seems to me that you like what Dash is doing in terms of governance. Do you know about what's going on with the Decred and its governance? And I bring this up because their marketing guy, comes on this show, and he was on this show last week, and you bring up Litecoin, and Charlie Lee likes Decred for governance. So I'm tying it all together here. There are people who think governance is going to be the next big thing. that Decred's doing it right, but then there's the Dash people also. So give us your governance summary, and do you even know about Decred at all?
Yeah, we've actually just started doing research on Decred. We've heard a lot of good things about it, so I can't really talk about exactly their governance because we've just started doing the research on it. But yeah, governance is definitely going to be a huge topic, and we've seen it with Bitcoin and the problems that they've had. And it's just, I think this decentralization is a great, it's great, and we've seen the view of how decentralization can actually happen. But I think reality is that we need some sort of body, and that's kind of what we've seen with Ethereum with Vitalik, where you have kind of that leader leading the vision instead of kind of a decentralized community fighting for control, which is what's happening with Bitcoin. Litecoin was able to pass SegWit because they basically had a body that came together, whether people like it or not, that moved the project forward. So governance is definitely going to be a big thing, and I think it's interesting how it's shaping up, because you have something like Decred, which from what I've heard, it's a more kind of a democracy type of voting system compared to something like maybe Dash, which is more kind of aristocratic, where you need to have control of a master-node, which is right now in the, I think, hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe a little bit more than $100,000. I think that's what it is. So it's governance is definitely going to become big, just because it makes developing the cryptocurrency much faster and efficient.
Well, everyone, pound that like button if you think governance is going to be the next big thing. We've been talking about governance here for a while and predicting that there are going to be a lot of coins bragging about their governance very, very soon. And I think it's the tip of the iceberg. Ansel, I'm going over to you now. I know you're not a big altcoin fan, but you probably have a lot to say about the governance or anything that you just heard, because there were some centralized type of comments that were tossed about there. I don't know if you have any opinions on that. So give us your opinions on the altcoins, Ethereum, on anything that was just said, and then transition into your final thoughts or stories and things that I left out that you wanted to talk about.
Okay. I'm not a complete maximalist. I do like Litecoin. I think that is, like Dimitri said, that is very good that they got SegWit. I think that if there is any sort of big blow up with Bitcoin, that users, that will be an easy transition over to Litecoin, even though they will be giving up some of the decentralization that Bitcoin brings. Governance wise, I think my favorite quote about governance is that you don't want politicians making technical decisions. So if you try to vote on these things, what do we need to do? You're not going to end up with a robust, secure, financially stable over the long term coin. You're just not going to. It's not possible. Look at, I mean, yes, you can look at the traditional markets and see that, yeah, they're very large and they have governance, but we're $20 trillion in debt in the US, and it's just all a debt-based system. So it's eventually something's going to happen to that to clear that debt off, and it's not stable. The same sort of things might happen with these coins. They will grow and grow and grow until eventually they explode. Bitcoin's model is much more decentralized, and it's good that it's hard to change. I don't want a bad actor coming in, and even a bad actor with, say, 51% of the hash power to come in and take over my coin, because you have the economic majority out there that's decentralized, that's going to protect itself. So I can see some arguments for governance, because it just is like scary to be the Wild West and be anarchy everywhere. But in the end, it's a much more stable way to build a currency or a money, is with almost zero governance and just a decentralized fashion. So,
all right, Ansel, tell us, did we leave anything out? Is there anything you wanted to share? And please share your contact information and how everybody can listen to you at your show.
Yeah, I just want to make the point again about the user activated soft fork, that it is happening. It doesn't matter how much people spew these rhetorical things, calling people stupid or naive or anything like that. The user-activated soft fork is going to happen. So it's a decentralized thing. It cannot be stopped. If you want to avoid a chain split, you have to support user-activated soft fork. That's all there is to it. Okay, you can reach me on Twitter at Ansel Lindner, and my podcast is bitcoinandmarkets.com.
All right, that was very reassuring, actually, and I am really happy how you explained this to everyone, because everyone has had so many questions about August 1st and everything. Thank you for all of that. Let's go to Crypto de Medici. I say your name wrong all the time. Is there anything we left out that you wanted to share, and just tell everyone how to contact you, and just anything? The floor is yours.
No, I think that was the final thoughts were good, and I'm excited to see crypto shaping up to, I mean, I think it's just beginning this year, and it's exciting to see all the developments, even if they're bad ones. And like Ansel said, it is the Wild West, so we have no clue what's going to end up happening, and kind of who the leaders are going to be in the future. I mean, obviously we can speculate, but I think that's what makes crypto so great, is that we don't really know kind of what we're creating. And yeah, we know that we're creating something that's powerful. So yeah, and you can reach me at Crypto de Medici. That's on Twitter, and I most of the time just troll. So don't take kind of what I say seriously.
He's got a great Twitter. I linked to it below. I'm going to link to everybody's links below. They might not all be down there yet, but by the time you come back to the video, if you're watching this live, everything will be down there. You can Google these guys. These are big time guys. Pound that like button if you enjoy these guests. We do different people every week, never repeats from week to week here on This Week in Bitcoin. So finally, let's go to Josh Nussbaum. He was new to our show, but it has been a pleasure to have him on. He definitely will return. He's awesome. Is there anything we forgot? Is there anything you'd like to talk about from your neck of the woods? You've given us a very interesting perspective from the venture capital perspective. Any conclusionary thoughts, anything, and how people can get in touch with you, anything you want to say?
Yeah, I think the one small thing that I really, thought about after I wrote that post, and, if I had written it now, I would have added this, is that whenever there's a new technology, people are warning others about the bubble and don't put too much money in and all that stuff. And I totally agree with that. But you need failure to see what's going to work and what can be successful. And so even if, a lot of these projects fail early on, I think there'll be a lot of learnings from the community. And then we'll start to see people really get it right. And the last thing is, and I don't have an answer to this, but I had an interesting discussion with somebody at the Token Summit about it, is, if you look at when Amazon launched AWS, would you rather own a basket of seed stage companies during that time that were started in, let's call it, the first 2 years, or would you rather own Amazon stock? And, I haven't done the math on it. It might be that, the power law of some of the companies could overcome it. But I think that's why, I'm bullish on Bitcoin and Ethereum, because they are sort of the staples there. And you're not sort of taking that huge risk, especially as an individual, whereas, fund dynamics sometimes can change that. And then, if you want to reach me on Twitter, it's just Josh_Nussbaum, Nussbaum. Feel free to email me. It's just josh@compound.vc. I answer all my emails. I hear a lot of VCs, but I get back to everybody, and I'm always interested in different discussions and debates and that.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I hope you come back on this show, because you're totally awesome. And remember, he brought up a very interesting thing just now with Amazon. And I will say this, it didn't hurt to hold that Amazon. So it's not going to hurt just to hold your Bitcoin, live a simple life. 2020, you'll be happy. 2028, you'll be really happy. I'm going to talk about that in a future video. One of my great commenters brought up 2028. Pound that like button, everyone. Check out, I post a new video here every day. We just don't do This Week in Bitcoin. There's a new video here every day, sometimes 2. Yesterday we had 2 shows. Check out the archives, check out the links below if you want to check out my old links. Again, I thank all my guests for being on the show today. Pound that like button. It's early in the day still in the United States, in New York and LA and everywhere. Hope everyone has a great weekend. I'm Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Remember to subscribe to this channel, like this video, share this video, and do check out the notes section below. I'll update them as soon as possible. Bye-bye, everyone. That was This Week in Bitcoin. Take care. Thank you very much. See ya. Bye.